Hey everyone, I'm going to be taking a look at a student's IELTS essay, their IELTS Task 2, and we're going to try to give it a grade really quick. So let me put the essay place where you guys can see it. Give me 1 second. A student sent to me, and that I have not seen before, so this will be a new experience for everybody. The key thing with Task 2 is that, again, you only have 250 words to do this, so you don't have a whole lot. And there's typically a lot of information you're trying to cover, just a general. Um, okay. So I suggest using a hook instead of just like a rephrase of the question. It gives you an opportunity to use some fresher vocabulary, use some words that basically maybe you wouldn't be able to include normally. It also gives you a chance to make sure that what you're saying is fresh. And these are all key things um, that if you just use a rephrase, you risk using too many of the same words, in the question, so we're not going to count them. And that can be an issue. If you have a 250 word essay and then 10 of your words or 12 of your words are from the question, the examiner is going to erase those, and then you're going to lose a point on your task achievement because your word count is too low. So that's something you definitely want to be worried about, basically, when you're writing these task twos. All right, so I have a link to a Google Doc. Give me one moment to share it with you all. And I'll put this right in the chat box so you guys can see the essay at any point. Okay, so feel free to check out this document to see the essay that we're going to be taking a look at together. I'll also be kind of talking. So for these types of questions, if it asks you to what extent do you agree or to what extent thoroughly, you don't need to look at both sides unless it specifically says to. If it says discuss both opinions, then yes, you need to discuss both opinions. But if it just says to what extent do you agree or disagree, then it doesn't really matter. You can go right for it, because that is definitely something I would suggest. You don't need to look at both sides. So I would save yourself the time. All right, so you can see in this essay that we have 4 paragraphs, so that looks good. Let's take a look at the introduction. So nowadays, government spending. Okay, so I'm already seeing a little thing. It should say government spending. It shouldn't say government spend. I have an S. S differs from said level to another, maybe from one level to another. In my opinion, I wholeheartedly agree that tertiary education should have a total financial support. Okay, a couple things. You don't really need this sentence that says, in my opinion, I wholeheartedly agree. These types of things, they don't do much for your writing, honestly. What they do is pretty much just, they're unnecessary. I already know you are writing the essay. You don't need to tell me that you're writing an essay in an essay. You don't need to tell me that I'm assuming that since this is your essay, this is your opinion. So you don't need to give that in the essay. So you don't need to say that. Save your time. Um, Also, in my opinion, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, these are things, again, that it's just redundant. You don't need to say it. So tertiary education should have total financial support. You don't need the it's just a should have total financial support. Um, Instead of saying for the reasons of high cost, that part to me is a little bit unclear for the reasons of high cost. I would say instead maybe something like should have total financial support, maybe like due to the high cost of education or something like that. It's like due to the high cost of education for students. Probably don't really need the at level. well as to encourage secondary students to join a university. Instead of join a university, maybe enroll in, I think would be a little bit more precise, to enroll in a university. I think that would be just slightly more accurate. Okay. Document, if you look in the chat box, I put a link so you can see the document that we're working on. Okay. So I like the thesis statement for two things. It has the opinion. Okay. So we know that there should be financial support from the government. Okay. So, and then to encourage those students to join, to enroll in a school. Great. So I think those things are helping out the essay. I like that. I think that sounds good. These are things that you want your thesis statement to do: an opinion, and also basically the reasons that your body paragraphs will explore. Great. So I think in terms of our thesis statement and introduction, I think that is working really well. Let's now take a look at the first body paragraph. First of all, you appreciate that it's slightly unusual. And if you're trying to get higher band scores for vocabulary, you do need to push your vocab. Okay, so I do understand that. I think some other things that may sound a little bit more natural, even just saying a lot of money or costs a significant amount of money. So I'll add those as comments, but not a very common word, more common than pupils. A more common word than pupils would be students, just saying students. Okay. So I would suggest making that adjustment. Okay, first of all, however, students, and I think we need to connect this to the government, like would not need to contribute. You contribute to something, to this, if the government helped. This critical stage of learning. Great. Okay, so at this critical stage of learning, let's see what's happening at this critical stage of learning. Undergraduates, I forget if that's a typo on my part from the student, so something to check out for spelling. Regardless, you want to watch out for spelling errors. If you're trying to get above a 6, you really can't be misspelling too many words. Spelling is super important. If you have lots of spelling errors in your writing, you're probably going to get a 5 for your vocab score. So spelling is important. If spelling is not your strength, then that's definitely something that you will want to study and practice. I know when I was in school, to improve spelling, we had to write words 100 times, 200 times, 300 times. Which need. Instead of which need, I would say needed. Needed to, instead of complete. Maybe instead of offer the choice for this topic, when you're talking about school fees, the word is tuition. So my suggestion would be to use the word tuition instead of just not offer the cash. So undergraduates could not afford the tuition needed to complete their education. In other words, if a university has annual expenses, which maybe like which students are not have, maybe like which students are unable to pay. If you wanted part-time work, then you would not need you would have to say find part-time work or something like that. Okay. As a result, this will affect, so long story short, check your spelling. Don't make silly spelling mistakes. For instance, there, or two, things like that. Check your spelling. As a result, this will affect your education level and concentration in learning. That could, instead that lead, I would say that could lead in some cases to completely. Therefore, universities should be pocketed by government. Instead of pocketed government, maybe covered. Pocketed doesn't necessarily mean paid for. It depends on the situation. Pocketed could just also means like to take something and put it away for later. I think a more accurate term here would be covered or paid for um, by the government. I would consider removing "and other organizations" because we haven't talked about other organizations. Who are these other organizations? Say, if you can see it in the essay, I'm looking at the transition word on the other hand, which shows contrast. And we're not really showing contrast, we're giving an additional idea. So I don't think "on the other hand" is the best transition word I would use, I would suggest. Instead, I would suggest maybe like phrase, like for instance, in addition to making it easier to afford college, I mean, or actually, no, by making it easier to afford college, um, free learning undergraduation instead of undergraduation years, it'll be undergraduate years. It's best key to encourage. I would get off the. I would remove everything up to to afford college. To the high secondary students, high school students, um, could complete their learning instead of searching for a job. Okay, so by doing this, they could complete their learning instead of looking for a job. Okay, majority of pupils do not have the required money to spend on expensive facilities, although they're intelligent. Um, so I think this sentence could be problematic. I think that sentence, the majority of pupils down to hardworking, I think we could remove it because I think it's an idea that we already expressed in the previous body paragraph. Instead of by financial support, through financial, instead of supporting, through financial support, their learning process will continue till after graduation. Instead of in consequence, probably the more common transition would be as a result. I would then get rid of the next. I'll get rid of the next as a result. I'll just use while the money, which funds, maybe instead of which funds, maybe like needed to fund, sponsor, needed to fund or sponsor undergraduates is enormous. The endless merits. I think we mean endless merits. Take off the endless merits might. So we'll take off the and then I think we mean endless merits might be gained from it. That to me would read a little bit more clearly. Might be gained from it. In contrast, if there's no motivation for high school students, most of them will leave university for purposes. Instead of for purposes of working, I just say for work. Okay, so instead of purposes of working, just for work. Okay, and those are the grammar and vocab things I see for the second body paragraph. Our last paragraph, our conclusion, starting off in what you think. Okay. This is your essay. I already know what you think. Ultimately, as it costs, and to motivate more, as it costs, as it costs, as it costs students too much money otherwise, and instead to motivate, maybe like could motivate more. Instead of motivate more young boys and girls to finish their maybe like higher education. Governments, we'll make that plural, talk about it in general. Governments should secure the needed cash. So the governments aren't securing the cash; they're spending the cash, right? Maybe like should invest in their education. Okay, something like that. All right, so those are all the grammar vocab things that I'm seeing for this essay. And again, you can see them in the documents, which I provided in the chat box. So you can see it there in the link. Um, Curious about the development and the logic, looking in your first body paragraph. Okay. So first of all, education costs a significant amount of money. However, students would not need to contribute to this if the government helped. Okay, so one thing that's not clear to me, this is your topic sentence. I don't really know what's important about this. Why is it so important that students don't have to contribute? When you have a topic sentence, you want to kind of be answering the so what question. Why is it important? Okay, so why is it important that you would not need to contribute? We kind of get that in the next sentence. At this get the money, we can't go to school. So that's probably something you need to tie into your topic sentence. Like, so maybe adding a little bit more just to that first part of your first sentence, the topic sentence. So first of all, university education costs a significant amount of money. Maybe saying like costs such a significant. Okay. So let's see that again. First of all, university education costs such a significant amount of money, many cannot actually afford it. However, students will not need to contribute to this if the government help. Okay. That to me, since we added that little part to the topic sentence, we can probably go actually right to the third sentence. I would consider removing this at a critical stage of learning process. I would consider removing it and highlight it red. Okay. In other words, if a university has annual expenses which students are unable to pay, they will need to either take out a loan or have a part-time job. As a result, this will affect their educational level and concentration, could lead leaving their studies completely. Why? The one thing is that I think we make a great idea. Okay. So you're saying if I can't afford education, I'll take out a loan, have a part-time job, which is going to affect my concentration and make me leave my studies. Why is having a part-time job or taking out a loan doing those things? I'm missing a little bit of the developments. Just because you have a loan doesn't mean that your concentration suddenly is completely lost. Or is it? Prove it. Show me. And right now I'm just not getting that. Okay. And then therefore governments. Yes. So the biggest thing I'm seeing for this paragraph is that detail about everything from as a result down to completely. Probably needs more information. Okay. Achievement. This logic is connected to your task achievement scores, even to your coherence and cohesion to a degree. The examiner needs to know that you can develop an idea. In the next body paragraph, by making it easier for college, they can complete their learning instead of searching for their job. Okay, so again, why is that important? Why is it important that you're not searching for a job? Why is this key support? Okay. And again, we're suggesting removing that next sentence, the majority down to hardworking. So the sentence after that, through financial support, their learning process will continue till after graduation. As a result, the country will benefit from their knowledge in different ways. How? What are those ways? In what ways will the country benefit? In those times where you ask a question and the essay doesn't have an answer, that is a problem. Okay, that's a whole logic. But the money which is needed to fund or sponsor undergraduates is enormous. Endless merits might be gained from it. Again, what are the merits? So in general for this essay, I'm seeing a couple holes in the logic that I think are going to be hurting this. All right, so let's kind of give a summary of what we think this would score in terms of a grade. Let's start off with task achievement. So again, a 9 for task achievement. You're fully addressing all parts of the prompt. You have a fully developed position and answered the question with relevant, fully extended, and well-supported ideas. I don't know if we have the fully extended and well-supported ideas. My guess is that we're probably going to be somewhere around a 5 or a 6. Okay. I think we do focus on the prompt. I think we're answering the question. I think the format is correct. I am using to grade it. And to me, I'm looking at that 5 for task achievement. Addresses the task, only partially, expresses position, development is not clear. That feels really true for me here. Presents some main ideas, but these are limited and not sufficiently developed. And again, that feels pretty clear to me too. Starting off looking at a 5 for coherence and cohesion, presents information with some organization. There is organization. Inadequate, inaccurate overuse of cohesive devices. There are some inaccurate cohesive devices. So for instance, we used in contrast. We're not actually showing a contrast. That's a mistake. Vocabulary, we had a couple of wrong word forms. So for instance, like undergraduate or undergraduation, something like that in the third paragraph. There were a couple of spelling mistakes. Some of the words didn't quite feel so natural. So again, my guess is somewhere around a 5 or a 6 for that as well. There were a couple of little grammar things that we adjusted as well. So my guess, again, would be somewhere around a 5 or a 6. Okay, we do have complex. I particularly like the structure. I like the body paragraphs. The topic sentences seem appropriate, which I appreciate. I just think we need to work on that development a little bit more and watch out for some of the vocab things that we mentioned and actually tidying up some of the grammar. So those are my thoughts on this essay. I have another essay from another student who wanted some feedback. So I'll be having a session on that as well very soon. Thank you for your time, guys. I will see you later. Take care.